Jeff Marek from the Jeff Marek Show and 32 Thoughts with Elliot Friedman. You're mad at us. Why?
Your take on the Stanley Cup being there for game one.
Oh,
that was trash.
Gross. Bad behavior.
Awesome. I've wanted them to do this forever. The thing about, oh, look, you have a Stanley Cup on your sets. Boys, what are you doing? Oh, where's my fainting couch? Oh, no, we've seen the Stanley Cup.
Jeff, you and I both know this is a popcorn machine. That's a popcorn machine. It happens to look like a Stanley Cup, but we're not gonna do the like what was she wearing with popcorn machines.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, but it was like the opening ceremony took too long. I wanted to watch hockey. We've gone a week without hockey. They brought out the cup, they paraded it around, and I think it takes the air out of the Stanley Cup is in the building tonight for those elimination games. That's always a big staple for the broadcast.
I understand that, but just like let's go down a little bit of a path here with me, Pete. Let's go for a little walk. As Dave Semenko used to say before he invited someone to fight, he never said, "Hey, come on, we're gonna go on the drop." He liked what he called witty goon talk, and what Dave Semenko would do is he'd saddle up next to someone, and imagine this: one of the toughest players ever saddles up next to you and says, "Why don't you and I go for a little canoe ride?" That was Dave Semenko's way of inviting someone to fight. So, Pete, why don't you and I, DJ, you come along as well, obviously. Why don't we go for a little canoe ride here about the Stanley Cup? So the way that I look at it, the NHL does two things specifically better than any other sport. One of them are the jerseys. There is no sport, and you've got jerseys behind you right now. Look gorgeous. There is no sport that does jerseys better than hockey. The other is the championship trophy. It is the most iconic, like internationally. You just look at that, whether it's the actual cup, whether it's the silhouette of the cup, everybody knows that is the Stanley Cup. And we spend so much time keeping this thing hidden, including in the series where the cup is going to be contested. I love the fact that it was on the ice as a reminder. And by the way, I love the fact that all the players on the ice, looked at this thing as if they were, looking at this, the thing that shall not be shown. And they were somehow going to melt or something if they stared at it too long. It was like, get this thing away from me. But I like the idea of always having it somewhere in the arena that can be seen by the players and the fans and the coaches and the managers and everybody. Maybe you make a stand for it somewhere in the audience. I don't know. Maybe you hang it from the rafters. I don't know. But I just love the idea of, how cool would it have been? Florida Panthers win game one. They do their stick salute, whatever, to the crowd, and then they all point to the Stanley Cup. Just to have, if you're looking for new traditions, have the team that wins the game point to the Stanley Cup, because what it does is it reinforces that this is what we're here for. It looks different. Yes, it's a total WWE ripoff of the WrestleMania sign leading up to WrestleMania, where they're always pointing at it, and that's where we're going to, and that's where this road is leading. I don't think we show that thing enough. Now, I do like Phil Pritchard coming out with the gloves, and listen, Phil's one of the great hockey historians and one of the great guys of all time in the game. And I understand, bringing it out of the case, it's iconic and all. Part of me really loves that, but I want this thing shown every single game. There should be at least a couple of cutaways that each TV show does, each TV broadcast does, where they show the cup, the reason everybody is here. NHL has one of the best things going, the Stanley Cup. We spend so much time hiding this thing just for some big reveal at the end.
So this I don't hate.
Kind of selling me.
Yeah, this I don't hate, especially for the, I think we'll agree on this, Pete, the element of haunting that you presented.
Yes.
That it's there, and some people won't be able to get it off their mind. If Connor McDavid has a game one against Dallas overtime moment where he kind of freezes and doesn't bury a chance, people will wonder, did maybe he get a little shine of the cup
And
Did it little glimmer?
In the
Caught
visor,
him
you
in
can
the
see the cup glimmering on the
Time
visor.
slowed down, and he just like there was a glimmer in his eyes.
Wasn't there a moment earlier this season in Florida, I believe, where the light snuck through the window on the outdoor concourse and blinded? I think it was I want to say it was the Senators goalie, whoever it was in net at the time, and he was like,
I forget where it was or who was involved, but there was for sure a like Trump.
I think it was Florida. I think it was Ottawa. That was. I like the idea and having like the pregame ceremony where they dim the lights to do the anthems and the introductions and stuff. Keep a fucking spotlight on the Stanley Cup. That would be very cool.
Can we meet here then? I don't like them bringing it onto the ice before. If they were to say like, "Hey,"
good with that for game one, yes. After that, get it off the ice. If don't want to see it on the ice until they bring it out. I'm with you on that, DJ.
Over there, the cup is there. Like, I would have liked yesterday if they said, "Okay, we got like Phil and the cup are here." They wheeled it out, and then some fucking magic trick. It goes away in a puff of smoke. That wasn't the real cup. That's
like
David Blaine.
Black curtain and poof.
Yeah, Eminem comes out and does his new single Houdini. It's like all a big illusion.
So you have the black curtain. You lift it up, it somehow vanished, and you point up to the upper rafters, and it's hanging there, or it's up on a stand, or there's something to make the cup even seem more. I love that you're getting on side with this quickly here, guys.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, first of all, they've broken the seal now, and trust me, it's taken a long time for the NHL to get there. There have been a lot of people in the league that have because the idea has been brought up before to have the cup on the ice before game one. This was a big deal in the NHL. A lot of people like, no, we can't do it. No way, it's coming out. Phil's got the case. Like, that's the only way we're going to do this thing. You're going to see it when it's going to be presented, and that's it. Like, Saturday night was a huge night for the NHL. They have not done that before, and so many people resisted it. I thought it was a home run. I know the players all cooties wanted to stay away from this thing, but that was like a tiny little step. And now that it's there, now we've got to push them into the light, guys. Now we got to say, okay, we've cracked the seal. Now what can we do with this thing? I think it needs to be in the rink and be able to be seen by the players at all times. How much of a great shot would it be to see someone miss on an empty net and the puck goes off the crossbar and goes into the netting, and the player looks up, and right in front of that player is the Stanley Cup.
Now I'm just imagining Cody Ceci firing a shot from the point and it denting the Stanley Cup in like the third tag.
The first cup loser or yet to winner to dent the cup.
Yes.
Didn't even have the cup in his possession.
Well, I think you do it kind of like the Pope Mobile, right? You have like the protected glass all around the cup, so no one can fire a puck off it. But I think, like, honestly, I think it could be really cool.
I'll also say, like, for personal reasons, I'll be able to hammer chicken fingers and various concessions at the games because the lines will be much shorter. You're going to have a bunch of old people who want to get, or kids, whatever, want to go see the Stanley Cup.
There's
going to be a line around the block over there. Meanwhile, everybody snacking on popcorn, whatever you need. Yeah. Very short lines. Business booming.
I feel comfortable saying you watch more hockey than basically anybody I know. Was there a moment in that on Saturday night, or like in general, where you watch something that you haven't seen before and you're like, has this happened before? Because I had that moment on Saturday. I was like, did they bring out the cup before game ones? I've never remembered this, but my memory stinks, so I don't know.
Can I tell you my favorite story of the Stanley Cup being trotted out?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I don't know if I've ever told this one, but it's a great one. So the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup was 1967, and you know what makes it even spicier? The then president of the NHL, who wheeled the thing out on a table, and then you got to listen to the speech too, and I'll tell you why in a second. Clarence Campbell had been like slamming vodka and orange juice all day, and he got out there and he grabs a microphone, and the Stanley Cup is on essentially a children's school desk that they're going to present this thing to George Armstrong. And Clarence Campbell, who had been, as I mentioned, drinking vodka the entire day, tries to stammer out some speech. I'm surprised that speech hasn't got more concert. And I know that the minute the three of us are done with this conversation, you're going to go to YouTube to try to listen to it. And you should, to listen to the then president of the NHL standing in front of the Stanley Cup after drinking, I don't know how many glasses of vodka and orange juice, try to present the Stanley Cup and give out a speech is one for the ages, I assure you. So as much as everybody thinks about, the 1967 Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup and it's black and white, Leafs have never won it in color, I always think of that Clarence Campbell drunken speech as they hand this thing off. Like, trust me, guys, that is one of my favorite Stanley Cup on the ice moments. And you know what they used to do? You know what they used to do too is they never used to grab it and skate around. They used to just push the table that the cup was on. I'm not making this up. Trust me, they used to just push the table around.
Like a male guy going through an office?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yes.
Well, has anybody done something on the laps getting so much smaller with the cup over the years?
That's true.
I was thinking about that recently.
Small circles.
What
That's
happened to taking a lap? Now it's just
Everybody gets.
you do one little twist, you stay in the neutral zone, and then you give it to one of your buddies. Gross. If I win the Stanley Cup, I'm lifting it for as long as my arms can do it, which is a little twist in the neutral zone, but everybody else deserves to be able to skate it around.
Yeah, and get the fans involved. Alex Ovechkin did his full lap and saw boobs. So
Oh, that's right. Who is it? Was it I forget who was someone who was broadcasting when the Penguins won, was trying to keep up with Crosby when he had the cup. And Crosby was like, "Get the fuck out of here," and kept just getting farther away from him. It was amazing.
Know what? I wonder if I'll just fall on I'll fall on the sword here. I wonder if that's just TV because there's so many cables on the ice that it's sort of, I don't know. I'm guessing here, but I'm with you. I like the full lap for every player, but I just wonder if there's too much cabling on the ice now. It's too dangerous. I don't know, but you're right. They take a couple of strides and then they peel back and they hand it back to someone. I like the idea of giving everybody I still remember, oh man, it was one of my favorite Stanley Cup moments, one of those Oilers Cups, and Marty McSorley went and got his dad out of the crowd and pulled him onto the ice. You're not seeing that kind of stuff really anymore as everyone's doing their full lap. I'm with you, DJ. I want the full lap back. Give me the full lap for everybody, all the Black Aces, everyone, coaches, in your Italian loafers. Yeah, walk around the ice. Go for it.
Respectfully, they're also, and I'm now coming from a place of privilege because I've gotten to be one of these idiots a bunch of times, but they let too many people on the ice when the cup is won. It should be
used to be worse. Go look when the Flyers won the Stanley Cup in the mid-70s. Everybody's jumping on the ice. It's insane.
At least if it's fans, then there's nothing you can do. But it should be, I don't know, 5 media members aside, the TV, 2 TV people, 3 writers.
You got 2 rights. You got 2 rights holders, and you got a number of cameras and families coming on. I don't know. I don't know that you can get around it.
But even if you can limit it to let's say there's 30 media members on the ice in addition to the friends and family, then maybe it's manageable and people can do their laps. Basically, if you're covering the Stanley Cup Final,
you're out
at the end. If you want to go on the ice, you can go on the ice.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's insane.
Yeah, that might be it too.
What do you think of Game 1?
Like everybody else, that was the Bob show, right? And I always think whenever I see a game like that and say oh, the goalie saved it, I always hear the voice of Kelly Rudy in the back of my mind. Worked with Kelly forever, and he would always make the point you shouldn't have to apologize for having a great goaltender. The goalie's part of your team. Oh, Bob stole that one is saying okay, so if your right winger scores 3 goals, did he steal a game for you? Or if your center goes off for 6 points, did he steal a game for you? Or is he just a great part of your team and it's a blessing to have him and they help win the game? I don't know. It was the Bob show. He was phenomenal. He was the reason why the Florida Panthers won this thing. I'll tell you what, my main takeaway from this is if I'm the Edmonton Oilers, not only am I upset that, they dominated the game all 3 periods, Florida really didn't tighten up until parts of the third. And when Florida tightens up, it's so hard to move. That's one of the things I think we all love about the Panthers. When they play that aggressive forecheck and close gap, they don't give you any room to move. It's so frustrating to play against that team. But if I'm the Oilers, here's what I'm thinking too. As much as it's, you know what, we owned all 3 periods. Don't play that again, boys. We're going to win. One of my takeaways from this one, Pete, is I don't think that Florida's going to play that bad again.
So I
don't you think they're not going to play that kind of game again? There's no way. There's no way.
I think they might play that kind of game. I think they're going to be better, and I think that Edmonton probably will not be that good in every game of the series, but it is because of the goalie element, and I don't like to do the this team got goalied thing, but Florida could play better. Edmonton could play worse, and Edmonton could for sure win a game in which they were worse than they were in game 1, and Florida's better than they were in game 2. But I mean, so, like all these chances that Edmonton was getting last night, or I'm sorry, this is taped, whatever. All the chances that Edmonton was getting in game 1, that's kind of how I thought this series would go. I thought the guys would get behind the Florida D and that there would be a lot of chances off the rush and that there would be breakaways. We talked before the series about Bob versus Skinner, and my main thing was like Bob's job is just going to be a lot harder. I know that Edmonton's reputation, sloppy trading chances, but the team in this series that's more likely to let a team go the other way is for sure Florida because of how aggressive they are. So if Bob comes back to earth a little bit, even if Edmonton is worse, don't you see some of those ones maybe going Edmonton's way?
They could. Here's my concern though, and we've seen this all playoff long, most profoundly in the Vancouver series when he got yanked for Pickard. Every series, Skinner has the one clunker. Like that's the one going into this one where it's like, okay, what do you need to mitigate? And I'm sure we're going to talk about Nurse and Ceci here in a second, but what do you need to mitigate if you're the Edmonton Oilers and you want to beat the Florida Panthers? The one thing you have to make sure is, excuse me, that Stuart Skinner doesn't have that one clunker that we've seen in every single round where you say to yourself, why didn't Holland go and get the goaltender? And then he turns things around and everything's fine again. You forget about the conversation until the next time that he does it. The Edmonton Oilers need Skinner to have a clean series. Like you're not going to pin that one on Stuart Skinner last night. Like at all. Like too many defensive collapses for those first 2 goals. Like you're not going to pin it on him. So I won't say to, Florida barely mustered 15 shots and, Skinner let in 2 and then the empty netter. We got to pin something on this guy. Not so much, but you do think in the back of your head, don't you, that he has the clunker in every series. When is it going to happen in this one?
I didn't feel like he had a clunker against Dallas. My memory is not great, but I feel like he was pretty good in Dallas. He did he did in game 1 give up a goal on the first shot again for the 11th time this postseason.
He does that. He does that. But can you pin that one on him? Like how many
not. But
how many count the breakdowns? First of all, there was and listen, we all love Connor McDavid, offensively talented, generational player, and all that. But like that was a tough look on the back check. And then, Bieksa brought up a great point on the intermission where he said like how the Florida Panthers, it said how that actual moment went from a 3-on-2 to 2 2-on-1s. And it was a couple of like really horrible reads, one by Ceci and one by Darnell Nurse, that led to that goal. I don't know that I'm going to pin that on Bob, but on Skinner. But yeah, like you spend too much time chasing the game. It's hard. The only thing is, one of the only teams that's comfortable chasing the game is Edmonton because they can snap into like no problem. Like, okay, 2 power plays and we're tied. Like, trust me, like if you're a team that has to grind for every single goal, moments like that are tough. First shot goes in and you just see all the shoulders. Oh, I mean, how many times have you guys seen it? When you're a team that doesn't score a ton of goals, it doesn't have like an elite level power play. You let in the first shot and it's like, okay, here we go. Now we're starting the game chasing. This is gonna suck.
And to your point, like Florida gets stronger as the game goes on. They're very good at locking it down. After game 1, the stat that blew me away was 67-0-4 in their last 71 games after leading after 2, which is crazy. But that team does get stronger as it goes on, so you don't want to fall behind early in games.
And they're a really disciplined team. Like you look at like everything starts from the middle of the ice for the for the Florida Panthers. Like everything that they did yesterday to shut down the Edmonton Oilers once they got their game going, it's all like they like Paul Maurice has his teams owning the middle of the ice and then they peel off from there. And they have angle. Now they work like crazy. Like you got to give it to the Florida Panthers. Like they contest every single piece of ice and they work really hard. But the whole thing starts in the middle of the ice. And I had one coach tell me that. And ever since he mentioned it to me, I can't stop seeing it. Watch how many defensive attacks by the Florida Panthers start from the middle of the ice. It's almost like the whole group is like right down the middle of the ice and then they peel off to get angle and to get stick and to force turnovers. It's an exceptionally A, it's a gifted team, but two, it's a very well coached team, and it's a disciplined squad. Like when you start to sort of peel back the game within the game, like it's a joy watching the Panthers. It really is.
Home ice, I feel, hasn't mattered as much this year as it has in years past, but last night
it doesn't anymore.
It really doesn't. Last night, I should say, or game one, every Oilers line dominated. The one that dominated probably the least was the Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman line. And McDavid has 11 minutes that he's got to play against Barkov, 14 minutes that he's got to play against Forsling. It worked. And if Hyman doesn't hit Bob in the head, and if McDavid doesn't go low on that chance like earlier in the game, then they do end up getting a couple of goals out of it, but by and large, it ended up working for the Panthers. Like, do you think that this will be a series as a result where line matching does matter because they do have a Barkov and a Forsling to put on McDavid?
Specifically Barkov. Like normally when it comes to McDavid, I'm more interested in the pairings that goes out against them. But when you have someone, I mean, how many times have you guys heard me make the lame joke that Barkov is finished for Bergeron? But it's true. Right? Like it's like he's the new Bergeron. And you have someone like that. Like what do we used to say about the Detroit Red Wings? You know, the Babcock Red Wings. When your best offensive players are also your best defensive players, you can't lose a matchup. And that's what Paul Maurice has. Like that's what Paul Maurice has, not just in Barkov, but I would submit Reinhart as well, who was a sort of stealth Selke guy this season. But you have someone like Barkov who's your best offensive weapon and is also your best defensive weapon. Like all of a sudden that becomes the genius we saw in Zetterberg and Datsuk. Like good luck losing a line matchup. Like it's one of the greatest luxuries you can have as a coach, saying, you know what, offensive situation, you go. Defensive situation, that same guy goes. You can't lose a line matchup that way. So I think that specifically with Barkov, that's going to be the challenge now for McDavid. Because we saw him like, man, watching him burned by Aaron Ekblad on Saturday night, like that was a real thing of beauty. But watching the job that Gustav Forsling's been able to do against elite players, including Connor McDavid, is quite spectacular. But to me, if you're Paul Maurice, every time McDavid is out there, you want to make sure you have Barkov on the ice because look what he's done to everybody. Like, you know, Kucherov's on the ice in that opening series. Who's on the ice with him? Barkov.
Yep.
It's like, and go right down the line. Like that guy, again, he is the new Bergeron. The Selke Trophy will be his for as long as he wants it.
So do you think that he, I mean, it seems like you think he makes more of an impact than the defenseman because going into the conference final, I know that we're all talking about Forsling now. Going into the conference final, we were all talking about Miro Heiskanen, and he ended up not really totally mattering because he ended up going up against the Oilers, and the Oilers were like, fuck this, we're just going to score. I feel like that could probably happen against the Forsling and Ekblad pairing, but when you add in Barkov, it's just a
killer.
place.
Like the puck doesn't go towards the net. Like the shots don't show up, like, and the goals don't show up. He's again, and the thing about Barkov is too. Remember the whole conversation we used to have about how slow he was? I guess we used to have the same thing about Draisaitl.
Bergeron too. People would talk about like can't really skate.
Bad boots. Oh, never cement boots. That's why they think that's all gone now. Because he's just smarter than everybody. Like at the end of it, the puck moves faster than the feet, and I'll take a smart hockey player anytime. And the other thing about Barkov, and this is something that I think is worth comment. The past couple of seasons, you know, he's been accused of not having a playoff intensity that's going to lead to winning, and that's gone now. You know, once upon a time was like all the skills, regular season guys, Selke Trophy, but where's that playoff thing that you need out of your playoff guys? Now he has that too. Like he really is sort of evolving into the closest thing to a perfect forward that, you know, we thought we had seen the last of when Patrice Bergeron exited the ice. But he's fantastic. He's as advertised. He's become everything that you've wanted. And let's not forget too, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden things got really aggressive in Florida when he started saying, this was around the contract negotiation time, when he started to say like, I'm sick of the losing. You know, like, I don't like that. Do I really want to be here? Like as much as you want to hand it to Bill Zito, and I think you should, and you know, he may end up winning general manager of the year. And he's constructed this team, by surrounding all these players with other players that are aggressive and are miserable to play against. Like, that's deliberate, right? Like, you look at Bill Zito's first signing. Do you guys remember what it was? The first thing that Bill Zito did when he took over the Florida Panthers was...
What year was this?
This is
2021, 2020?
3 years ago.
Was Bob?
Was it
No,
Bob
was Dale Talon. Bob was Dale Talon. No, he did bring in Bennett. His first one, and it was really so quiet, but it was a message that we need to get more miserable to play against. He brought in Patrick Hornquist. Patrick Hornquist is like, you guys know, he's awful to play against.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, this is what we need. Like, I honestly think that symbolically, that was the indication of what Bill Zito was going to do. Like, I'm always curious about a manager's first move and what that indicates to how he wants his team to be, how he wants his team to play. They brought in Hornquist, and it was like, ever since then, all of a sudden, it's been this like steady stream of guys that are just
parade.
You just hate playing against all these guys, right? And Barkov's not that guy, but he does have an intensity that we haven't seen before, because when you get all those guys in the same room, like I've always said, like, whichever team has the most grumpy hockey players, like, that's going to win. Like, you know what? Chris Pronger was one of the grumpiest players the game has ever seen. That guy won, right? Like Ryan Kessler, like, give me all the guys, Nikita Kucherov, like, you know, the ones, the guys that show up first thing in the morning and they want to complain about the coffee. Oh, his coffee sucks. Like, are you miserable about everything?
Shout out Chris Kelly.
Shout out Leon Draisaitl, famously pissy.
All of them. Yeah.
Chris Kelly,
right?
Draisaitl, yep.
Give me the grumpy hockey players. You know, Bob Gainey when Bob Gainey ran the North Stars, he would say, you know, if you're a general manager and you don't have a headache every day, you don't have a great team, because great players give you headaches. And if you're going to get headaches, you're going to have a great team. The worst thing you can have is an easy time as a general manager, because then your team is going to suck. You need guys that are awful and miserable. Like Sam Bennett. Oh my God, is he awful to play against? Ryan Lomberg. Like, go right down the list of all these. And when they're all in the room, all of a sudden it brings out like the grumpiness in everybody. When have you ever seen Oliver Ekman-Larsson play like this, guys? I'll wait.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's like, where did that come? Where does this? But that's just like this hothouse of grumpiness that the Florida Panthers have kind of produced. Like, it's just so cool to watch.
So do you take the
marinating in it for sure.
So do you take the grumpiness over the vibes? Because I'll tell you what, Oilers generally this season, I know that October and November were tough. They've generally been smiles times. You cannot get Zach Hyman to not smile. Even Draisaitl, who has been questioned for his pissiness. He and McDavid, just thick as thieves, always smiling. Stu has just gotten hotter. That's just a comment on his physical appearance. But they seem to be the more vibes, where the Panthers seem to be the more like men on a mission.
It is a different kind of grumpiness. Like, Connor doesn't like for the longest, I always felt this way about Nathan MacKinnon. Like, for the longest time, I wasn't sure that Nathan MacKinnon had upper teeth. I had no idea. And there's times where you're wondering if like Connor McDavid has upper teeth at all. Like, you're right about Hyman. Hyman, like, that's just him. And I've known and watched him. Like, we live in the area, and I watch him play in the OJHL and all the way through, and then into Michigan. And that's just always the way that he's been. Like, that's how he's hardwired. He can be having the worst day in the world, and you'd never know it. Connor's interesting because there's an element of trying to prove something. Like, let's not forget here, McDavid, when he played junior hockey with the Erie Otters, they never won the OHL championship, never went to the Memorial Cup. When he played in the OHL Cup, when he played in minor midget, he lost to the Mississauga Rebels 2-1, a team that was that star Robbie Fabry. It's like, this guy hasn't like won for a long time. So, and we've all sort of wondered, and there's always going to be that comparison between him and Jack Eichel. Now, Eichel's won with the Vegas Golden Knights. This is an intensely competitive person. He's finally in there with his finally getting his shot at it. So I think there's an element of grumpiness with McDavid. He wears it a very particular way. There's a part of him that I think he's still working through some frustration as well. Like, how would you like to be? Like, first of all, it must be the best feeling in the world to be the kind of athlete where when your head says, I want to do this, you can actually do it.
Mhm.
Because for the rest of us, like my head will go like, yeah, man, I go play men's league. Like, I want to do this. And my body's like, yes, fuck off. Like, you're not like, not a chance, Marek. Like, forget about it. But McDavid, whatever goes between his ears, like he can do it. Like it's completely unique, but he's at a certain level that not everyone else around him is at. And he has, he kind of, in some ways, the team at times is kind of like luggage. And you've seen him just say like, okay, get on my back. We got to win this thing. So he's grumpy in his own unique way. Draisaitl is grumpy in his unique way. Listen, I know that Darnell Nurse has his detractors, but there's an angry guy in there.
Fuck yeah.
About everything that he's heard about his game and how he's been talked about. And I know a lot of the guys, don't like the way that Nurse has been talked about because of the contract. But I mean, like, that's baked into the pie. Like that happens in any sport. There's a different kind of grumpiness about Edmonton. I think Edmonton's grumpiness is based on criticism and frustration. Whereas I just think that it's going to sound bad, but I just think that like the Florida Panthers are just a bunch of grumpy guys.
Like
Florida, they really are.
Florida has the vibe like they get off on ruining other people's times. Like that just seems.
I don't think Matthew Tkachuk's like that at all, Pete. I don't know what you're talking.
Let me ask you: do you think Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci play together again this series?
This series, maybe,
I can guarantee it.
not next game.
I fucking guarantee it. He's addicted to it. He'll go away from it. He will come back to it. I don't fucking know why.
He has. I don't think we're gonna see them play together next game. I still think that at the end of for game 2, somehow Vincent Desharnais is gonna find his way into the lineup here against like a really physically robust team like the Florida Panthers. He'll want that, but Chris Knoblauch will want that. I don't see that pairing happening for game 2, but. DJ's point's a good one. Like he does go back to it.
It makes no sense to go back to it for game 1 in my mind. Like I'm not as smart as Chris Knoblauch. All of Chris Knoblauch's moves to this point and his coaching decisions have struck at least doubles on the base paths. So I was waiting to not question that, and immediately they're on the ice for 2 goals to start that game.
Jeff, you talked about the first goal that they gave up. The goal that broke my heart the most in that game was the second one, because Edmonton is hemming them in, just giving the Panthers nothing. Florida finally gains the red line, and it's just a little flip into the offensive zone. And who was it? Was it
Cody?
Bennett?
Cody, it was
on the wall.
Who flipped? I have it in my notes. Someone. Let me see. Yeah, it was Bennett. Bennett just flips it into the zone, beats Ceci to the puck, passes it through Nurse, and like that's that. It was the Oilers completely dominating, and literally all it took against that pairing was flipping the puck into the offensive zone, which a lot of times that's just like flip it in and get a change. But that was a flip it in, and 2 seconds later you have a goal.
How many times have you heard the cliche, defense is a choice? and that was a choice, right? Like that, like you're right. Like Cody C, because I was having this conversation with someone this morning on that second goal. Who do you pin most of it on? Cody Ceci for losing that battle. Again, defense is a choice, defending is a choice, or Darnell Nurse for puck watching and not having a stick on the ice. So who's the bigger? See, to me, it's Cody Ceci.
In real time,
they're both bad plays, but to me, I pin that one on Ceci.
You got to win the initial battle.
In real time, I yelled about Ceci and he yelled about Nurse.
Yeah, we were watching the game and live streaming, and we both yelled at both the guys, like basically 2 seconds later. Just have your stick on the ice, but if you don't lose the first battle, you don't get burned. The puck doesn't go through you. So, I mean, it's shared responsibility, as has been the case for most of these playoffs. They both share the blame.
They do it well.
You can't keep rolling them out there with enough tape to say this doesn't work.
Yeah. And that's, again, I can't speak to any other games. I don't know. Like DJ makes a really good point about this one. It's like the button you can't stop pushing. But for game 2, I'm confident in saying they will not be together. I can't speculate on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if it gets that far.
You mentioned Desharnais. I too am surprised that Desharnais was the guy that came out last round, and especially when you're going to go against this team with a bunch of tough customers. Just put a tall motherfucker back there. Ceci is the guy that I thought at some point would come out of the lineup, and maybe it's because he's got that offensive touch that we saw in Game 7 against the Canucks. But there's something with, like, I think Knobloch legitimately likes Cody Ceci, and I don't want to shift this now from everyone was shitting on Darnell Nurse to everyone shitting on Cody Ceci. I don't think that everybody should be shitting on anybody. Although the Nurse stuff, nobody was lying about any of the stuff he was doing. So a lot of the pushback of the media, this, that, whatever. But yeah, I think the Draisaitl thing of Nugent Hopkins is Knobloch's favorite player, I think is wrong. I think it might be Cody Ceci because this guy has survived everything. Even with that said, though, I think well, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's if I can swing back quickly to Vincent Desharnais, there was is it last year? It was last year, or was it the year before, where the Oilers had a chance to, let me know what you guys think about this. The Oilers had a chance to trade for Radko Gudas. It was on the table. There was a discussion about Gudas on that blue line. And the internal dialogue, I think, revolved around, you know what, we're not going to pay assets to bring in Gudas. We've got Vincent Desharnais. So we already have some size back there. But let me throw this one at you guys. How different is this Edmonton Oilers team if you have someone like Radko Gudas on that blue line?
Well, he was a guy that immediately jumped to mind when we were having the Florida conversation earlier, when Bill Zito brings in guys that have that to them. Radko Gudas was one of those guys. And Radko Gudas was brought into Anaheim to be one of those guys, to a very nice young team that didn't have enough snarl. Gudas seems very important to that team. And I think Gudas would have been very, very important to the Edmonton Oilers. And
he's been important everywhere he's gone. Everywhere he's gone, he's been important.
And the thing that Bill Zito is so good at is identifying the guys who are nasty and can also play. Those things fucking matter. You can have the nasty and the guys that are liabilities out there. It's not going to make you that much better of a team. They have to be able to play too, and Gudas is one of those guys.
This wasn't his first move. You said GMs who make their first move, but this was his second or third move. Don Sweeney, Zach Ronaldo.
Play.
I'm going to get somebody with snarl, and it's you traded a third-round pick for the actual worst player in the league, my guy.
Okay, so we're talking about Bill Zito here now. Pete, thank you for getting me to a place that I was hoping we got to in this conversation. So I was having a talk with someone middle of last round when the Panthers were playing the Rangers. And this is someone who's been in hockey forever. And this person said to me, I'm really getting 2011 Boston Bruins vibes from this Florida Panthers team. Said not necessarily man for man, but the way that they're constructed and the way that they play. Now, we've already talked about how Barkov is the new Bergeron. So that's the obvious one here. Mm-hmm. But there is, and I said, there's no Chara. But then, outside of, Larry Robinson on the Montreal Canadiens in the late 70s, no one has ever had a Chara. He's the biggest freak in the history of the game. So let's bracket the Zdeno Chara conversation here. But when you look at how the team was put together, there are elements in, Sam Bennett, that you look at someone like, Milan Lucic or Nathan Horton, and you say okay, there's something there to that, and go right down the lineup and look at the way that they play and how they're constructed. And it's funny because I mentioned that to Bill Zito, had him on the radio show last week. And I said, I have this conversation, 2011 Boston Bruins. And when he was an agent, he represented Tim Thomas. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of, an area that he would know well. And he said, I've never really thought about it, but now that you mention it, we kind of do have this, a similar tone or a similar vibe to the Boston Bruins. I think it's there. Are you guys getting 211 Boston Bruins vibes from the Florida Panthers?
I mean, obviously Barkov is Bergeron, which you said. Kachuk has always reminded me more of Marchand than anyone else I've seen since Brad Marchand came into the league. They've got the goaltender in Bobrovsky, the guy that
he's way more laid back than Tim Thomas though. That's one where
nothing bothers Bob.
Nothing bothers Bob. Everything bothered Tim Thomas. Correct. Everything.
And
again,
I will.
Where guys will complain about the coffee when they come to the rink, Thomas would complain about oxygen. But
Oh yeah.
I don't like this air that I'm breathing today. Like that's totally
Vancouver Customs held up his peanut butter that he wanted for his peanut butter sandwiches, and that was a big stink. True story. They brought the Bruins tried to get peanut butter for Tim Thomas across the border, and because I noted that the Bruins swept the Flyers in the second round, and the Flyers famously have these great Flyers-shaped pretzels that they give to the media. In the third round, the Bruins started serving soft pretzels there as well, and I started keeping a stat of the Bruins are undefeated when soft pretzels are served at the game, and Vancouver did not serve soft pretzels, so the Bruins tried to smuggle soft pretzels across the border, and the pretzels and Tim Thomas's peanut butter got held up. And I wrote a blog about it, and the name of it was Pretzel Logic, and nobody understood it because they're fucking losers who don't listen to Steely Dan. That's the end of that story. But I'll say they definitely don't have a Chara, but who was I saying last night Forsling is in terms of like anyone could have fucking had that guy, Seidenberg.
Oh yeah.
He's like the player that anyone obviously
Seidenberg more of a shot blocker though than Forsling.
Right.
Seidenberg like got in front of
play
everything.
style's different because Forsling's a better offensive player. Seidenberg a lot more stout, but in terms of where the fuck did this guy come from? How'd you get this player for basically free? So in roster building and in actual roster, I see it. There's similarities there.
Pete, DJ's in. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in, and I just love the idea that a general manager can like subconsciously do that and not do it like as a blueprint. Especially somebody who was close to that 2011 team, or at least had a connection to it, to be like, oh yeah, I guess that is the plan that I've been following.
It's like if somebody's like, "Hey, I've been working on this song. Let me know what you think," and you're like, "Have you been listening to Coldplay The Scientist recently?" And they're like, "Oh fuck."
Now the other thing, like the other thing, and maybe there's like this is part of the influence, but like Gregory Campbell like works in the Florida Panthers organization here. I don't know if there's like some not so subtle nudging, like, hey, maybe this guy would look good on our
Sean Thornton as well.
Sean Thornton is another great
Roberto
one.
Luongo. He was close to that 2011 Bruins.
He's got
maybe on the other side of things and how that whole vibe kind of changed a little.
I like the idea of Roberto Luongo having to go up to Sergei Bobrovsky and be like, "What the fuck are you doing, you stupid idiot? I had a shutout in game 1 of 2011, and you now are following the wrong path."
At the end of game 2, if it goes to overtime and Stu Skinner gives the puck away behind the net, the Panthers are fucked. It would be amazing if they end up after this, because we'll make a reel of this being like, are the Panthers the 2011 Bruins? It would be fantastic if there's just constant 2011 Canucks behavior from the Panthers the rest of the way.
I just want to hear Sergei Bobrovsky complain about Stu Skinner not pumping his tires. Then my life will absolutely be complete. That was one of my favorite moments from 2011.
That was incredible.
Shocking. I remember sitting in that press conference, like everybody's jaw on the floor. Like,
God. That 2011 Cup Final, God, not only great as a Bruins fan, but just like what fucking drama.
I don't know if you could beat it.
Incredible.
Yes, it was.
Incredible stuff.
Like to me, the best final I ever saw was 87 Philadelphia and Edmonton. But I have a bias. I think 1987 was the best year ever for hockey, and I'll fight anyone who disagrees. But as far as emotion goes, again, every game it just built and built and built. Like you needed, like the games themselves, like when the game itself doesn't act as a release valve either for the players or the fans, this is building to something. Well, and we saw where it ended up going, and there's going to be a 30 for 30 coming out about it. But like that was like every single game that went along, it was just like, let's just see how much more we can ratchet up the emotion. Let's just see how much more we can get like the nerves closer to the skin. Like there was like the thing about that series was everything was an overreaction, right? Like every response was an overreaction. Every tweet was an overreaction. Everything that they did on the ice, everything that was said off the ice, like all of it was a complete overreaction. Like I'm always interested in and this is true of like not just sports, but like history as well, how human beings react when they're really like pushed to a breaking point. And I think that 2011 was the closest, so maybe that I've seen, you guys as well, perhaps, that I've seen to seeing two hockey teams almost like as a test to see how they would react when they're pushed into an extreme situation emotionally. Because as much as that was, the physicality of it and everything, like that was a series that lived in between everybody's ears. And it seemed as if like everything was for keeps, and like, all the sports cliches that we always like. I always say that the one thing that's great about a sport like boxing or MMA is there's no metaphors. There's no metaphors. Everything you say you want to do is what you really want to do. Oh, I'm going to kill this guy. You say that in like basketball or football. It's like, okay, yeah, we know what you mean. But like 2011 was the closest that I felt to like, there's no metaphors here. Everything that people are saying they want to do to the other team, they really mean it. And it's the fan base against the fan base. And it's two of the most passionate and dig in your heels and launch grenades fan bases. The mix of personalities was perfect. The Vancouver Canucks had we were talking about miserable hockey players. Go to Hockey DB and have a look at the Vancouver Canucks lineup, and they do the same for the Boston Bruins, right? Like Andrew Ference was nobody's buddy. Milan Lucic was nobody's. Like go right down the list.
Kessler,
it was awesome. It was fantastic. Right,
Burroughs.
Keep going. Yeah. How about go ahead, say it.
Kevin Bieksa.
Kevin Bieksa.
Kevin Bieksa.
I've loved Kevin Bieksa, or I don't really care about Kevin Bieksa, I'll be honest. Like, but I'm fine with him as a media member.
I think he's great.
But throughout his career, I always thought, and it was just because of this series, I was like, God, what a fucking prick that guy was, because he had the most punchable face in the world. Miserable with the media. Any question that he was asked, you talk about the overreaction thing, you could ask him a straight question like, hey, is Lucic a tough player to play against or whatever? And he'd be like, well, I know what you're trying to do and you're just going to twist it, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, dude, get a life. What's wrong with this guy? But that was just what the fucking vibes were in that series. You're so right that everything was extreme. It was an overreaction. I am so worried, Jeff, that history is going to forget. Coaches had to call meetings and tell their players, when the game starts, stop shoving your hands into the opponent's mouth, because they were taking off their fucking gloves and go, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to bite me? You're going to bite me, you little pussy boy? Yeah. Bite me. Yeah.
Let me give you a name here. We're missing one. Max Lapierre.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, he was going into the series. He was supposed to be the one, and then he ended up getting way the fuck down because Alex Burrows was like, "I am gonna bite you."
There's a moment on Hockey Night in Canada. I can't remember which game it was, but it was in the middle of one of the periods. The whistle had just gone, line change, and Max Lapierre came out, and they called for a tight one shot on Max Lapierre, and the one shot was just on Lapierre's face, and so it's over the commentator to describe something about Max Lapierre, why he's effective, why they have him out there. And Craig Simpson, I'll never forget this. All he said was, "How do you not want to punch that face?"
Incredible.
It was one of my favorite Simmer moments of all. Like, I love Craig
Legend.
Simpson. And I'm just like, Simmer, you just became a legend. How do you not want? This is Hockey Night in Canada.
That's amazing.
How do you not want to punch that face?
That's so
Simmer
good.
is incredible. That is so fucking good.
It was remarkable.
I can't imagine that anything comes close to that, but maybe. What's the potential for hate between these two teams this year?
Somebody needs to do something dumb. Like, there are some teams that just like that you don't have to manufacture. Like, it's just going to happen. It's just going to come out. But I get the feeling that it's not going to come out. I mean, it can't come out easily from the Florida Panthers. And we've seen that before. It takes something to get it out of the Edmonton Oilers. And that's why it's going to take someone doing something really dumb for it to happen. Like, Sam Bennett needs to do something against someone to bring that out. Probably like you saw when Bennett, Saturday night accidentally bumped into Connor McDavid. Oh, I didn't see you here, best player in the game, as I bump you at the blue line and remind you you're going to get, maybe 7 games worth of this.
And
So
then
I think
Verhaeghe had a weird high stick. Those
that
wasn't like malicious.
That should have been a major. That should have just been asshole tax.
That was
Just like
so weird.
What do you? You're in the cup final and you're chasing a puck like this. Go away, dude.
Yeah, asshole tax. I like that. So instead of a 2-minute minor, it's 1 minute. It's
No,
like
it
really has
should be 2 for the penalty and 50% extra for being an asshole.
Right. So they added on. I was one time on the road. I overslept and missed
after
flight.
being overserved, perhaps.
It was those don't fucking get me started on the bartenders in Chicago. They are crooks. The way that they serve, disgusting. Yes. But I was like rushing, and I was getting a new flight and everything, and I was trying to book everything on my phone. And I have the nicest cab driver ever, and she's like, "You seem frustrated, but you know what? You're just paying life. You're just paying tuition because we're all in the school of life." And your tuition bill came. That's all. And I was like, we have a word for it, ma'am. It's asshole tax. I was an asshole. Now I deserve to lose money. That's what this is. Neither of these teams have lost 2 games or both these teams have lost 2 games in a row only once this postseason. Both were in the conference final. I think that if the Oilers fell down 2 games to none, they could still come back in this series, maybe like a 2011 Cup Final sort of thing. But do you think that this will be a long series? And getting back to what Pete was saying, like just with the principals involved, the McDavids, the Dreisaitl's, all the assholes on the Panthers, like do you see this being a long, grinded out classic series?
I hope it is. I still don't know. I mean, listen, is Bob going to play like that for 4 games and then that's going to be it? Nice tidy series? I don't think so. I still think we'll see, but like I think at some point, Edmonton's power play is going to do some damage here. So I don't think that it's going to be a quick one here. I'm hoping that it's 7 games. And again, like to your point, I don't think it's a disaster if the Edmonton Oilers lose game 2. They quote unquote should have won game 1. Sorry, Kelly Rudy. I know the goalie is part of the team. I understand that. I apologize. But I think Edmonton goes back down 2 bagel. I still think they're very much in this thing. I wouldn't be concerned if I'm the Oilers at all, especially a team that's showed that they can score their way out of problems. Like there are some teams you just know, like they go down 2-0 and holy smokes, they have a hard time, ratcheting up the offense. Like Edmonton, this is the team that we all thought that they were going to be until Chris Knobloch says, no, you're going to have to learn how to play different ways. We just thought they're going to be the team that scored their way out of problems until they run in against a team that showed that they're not going to score their way out of problems. So given that they can score in bunches, and we've seen that against everybody they've played against, even if they go down 2 Cobb, I'm not worried if I'm the Edmonton Oilers. Not at all.
For some reason, like I can't shake the feeling. Like I just feel like the series hasn't officially started yet because that was such a weird game that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like for the Oilers,
it was a goalie game. Goalie games, especially in game 1, like it doesn't get you like into the series yet because the game was Bob. Like it was a goalie game.
It was such an out of character game. Like the Oilers control against Florida and they control for almost 60 minutes and they have 0 goals to show for it. Just seems like such a fluky result.
Yeah, I thought they would get the chances that they had. I didn't think they would have the puck the whole game.
Yeah.
Like it was like 70% believable, but the other 30% was just kind of off the map.
If that game happened in game 3, you'd probably be more comfortable about it. But it's like, okay, first impression. Okay, that's why you don't get like, I don't think we got a real true sense of what this series is going to be like yet because it's a goalie game. Goalie games happen. Like if that happens in game 4 or game 5, you say to yourself, goalie game, move on. But when the goalie game is the first game, you have a hard time saying, okay, like this series has flypaper on it yet for me.
And that is how you have a full segment of a podcast during the Stanley Cup Final in 2024 without saying Paul Maurice's name. Good job, everybody. We fucking did it. He makes jokes sometimes. He gets up there like George Clooney, gives a little
I love
those little one-liners for Emily Kaplan. No,
I think the mayor did mention Paul Maurice's name when talking about the inside-out defensive structure of the Florida Panthers.
That is very, very true. Now, listen, I used to this would have been 2005 when I was doing color for the Toronto Marlies radio, and Paul was a coach, so I got to spend like a whole season talking to that guy. I have a lot of time for Paul Maurice. Like first of all, he's one of the funniest guys. I don't think there's anyone that has a better deadpan than Paul Maurice. Like whenever it comes to coaches, we're always like, okay, who's got the best death stare? And there's a lot of them, but I don't know that anyone has a better deadpan than Paul Maurice. But the one I remember I asked Paul once, you guys will like this because it's a fun name from the past. I said, what was your welcome to the NHL moment? Like, what was the one moment where you realized, like, holy smokes, I'm coaching in the NHL? He said it was his first day coaching, and he called, blew the whistle, got all the guys to center, and said, okay, we're going to do a couple of laps, and we're going to break in these drills, whatever. And he said he blew the whistle, and he said that Sammy Kapanen, you guys remember Sammy Kapanen? Mm-hmm. Sammy Kapanen took off like he was fired out of a cannon, and he had never seen anyone skate that fast before in his, like, I think about this a lot, like that first moment where Paul Maurice blew the whistle and Kapanen took off, like he was just like, what did Brizgalov talk about with the Canadian team in 2010? It was like they were gorillas released from a cage, and like the next thing we know, it was 3-0. And Paul Maurice like being overwhelmed by Sammy Kapanen skating, to him now being, I guess, 3 games away from winning the Stanley Cup. If only the cup were still in the building for someone to point at, instead of hiding it now for however many games, right, guys?
Full circle. Look at that.
Get it up in that corner. Get it up in the corner. Like, especially, in Vegas where they've got that thing up over on the
castle.
Like to the right of it, there's just a space. Put it there.
Oh, yeah.
Have the games in Vegas, too. That way you can do the magic and make it disappear whenever you want. Just leave your options open.
Bring in Penn and Teller.
Full circle. I know that we said that we would give you 20 minutes. We've done about 55.
Right. We gave him 20. He gave us 20.
That's a real gotcha on our part.
Yeah.
Fucking roasted.
I just got a text from my son. I left, so I guess he's I'm going to go to the gym with him. So he's already split.
Just like in general, just like
20 minutes ago. 20 minutes ago, that's it. Like I left. All right.
We apologize. The conversation was just so good.
Yeah, this is great.
Appreciate you, man.
Dude, guys, anytime. I seriously mean that. Anytime. Hope this one goes long so I can maybe get invited back.
We all silly like the mayor.